Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and master certified life coach, Suzy Rosenstein.
Hey there, today we're talking about something that sounds simple, but is actually one of the most radical things you can do in midlife, wanting something just because. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast Women in the Middle with over 2 million downloads and counting. I'm your host, Suzy Rosenstein, your master certified coach, midlife life leadership mentor, and certified Zentangle teacher. And I am so glad that you are here for this episode because today we're going to talk about a topic that's very close to my heart and one I wanted to take somewhere that I haven't taken it before. You may remember episode 436 where we talked about giving yourself permission to make yourself happy. We covered 8 kinds of permission slips that you might need in midlife, and we even had a little permission slip ceremony together. If you haven't heard that one, I'll link it in the show notes. It's so good. But today we're going one level deeper because there is something about permission that I didn't quite name in that episode. Something I understand more clearly now, especially in my 60s. And it starts with crystals. But just quick, before we dive in, I have a question for you. Are your priorities feeling a little murky these days? Getting clear about what you actually want makes everything easier, including the fun stuff. I have something that can help. It's called Get Unstuck Midlife Clarity Fast and Easy. It's a do-it-yourself masterclass that helps you get clear about your next chapter priorities without the spin, confusion, and overwhelm in less than an hour. Really think about that. It's fast and it's easy, and it's available right now at a low price with instant access. So if you've been going in circles trying to figure out what you want for your next chapter, this is a shortcut, and it's the shortcut you've been waiting for. You'll walk away with real clarity and a regret-proof power plan so you can stop overthinking and start moving forward. Head over to www.midliferoadmap.com to get started. All right, now let's talk about wanting things just because. I want to tell you about something that happened recently in my house. I have a thing for hanging crystals and beach glass. I love them. And especially, the kind that catch the light, the crystals, and beach glass I'm just addicted to. So the other thing I like is translucent sliced agate. So I don't know if you like rocks and crystals and stuff, but crystal prisms that catch the light, they just bring me such joy. And also small stained glass whales. I have a lot of those. The kind of thing that just makes me happy when I look at them. All of this stuff, and for no practical reason whatsoever. So I wanted to hang a special rod. It's like a deep curtain rod. I wanted to hang it over one of my windows so that I could display more of this collection, more of what I love, more of what makes my heart sing. Now, to make this happen, I needed my husband's help with the installation. And here's what I noticed as I was about to ask him. I felt self-conscious. Not because I thought he would say no, but because asking for help meant talking about it. And talking about it meant inviting questions, commentary, maybe a raised eyebrow or an eyeball roll or two, like a gentle, do you really need more of those? That kind of stuff. And I didn't need more of them. That was the thing. I already had some. I've got lots. There was no practical case to be made, no problem being solved, no productive outcome at the end of it. I just wanted them. And somehow the wanting felt like it required a defense. So I almost talked myself out of asking. Almost decided it wasn't worth the conversation, almost pre-rejected myself on behalf of someone who hadn't even said anything yet. And I caught that thought. So I asked for help anyway, and he helped. The crystals, the whales, the beach glass, everything's hanging up now. And every time I look out my window and I see that light coming through them, I feel a little flutter of joy. But here's what stayed with me. How many times have I done that? How many times have I talked myself out of wanting something before anyone else even had a chance to weigh in? How many small, beautiful, completely personal desires have gotten squished before they ever saw the light of day, not because somebody actually said no or gave me grief, but because I anticipated the questions and the commentary. Are you with me? And more importantly, how many times have you done that? Here's what I want you to hear today. I want you to really listen. You don't need a reason to want what you want. You don't need to earn it. You don't need to justify it. You don't need to make a logical case for it or prove that it solves a problem or serves someone else or represents a good use of your time and money. You're just allowed to want something because you want it, just because it makes you happy, just because it brings you joy, just because it's yours. It's your desire. So notice what we're talking about. We're talking about want. It doesn't always need to relate to something that you need to purchase or something that you need to have, and maybe have now. So I know that sounds really simple, and it might be obvious. But here's the other thing I've noticed after a decade of coaching midlife women. This is one of the hardest things to actually practice, because somewhere along the way, most of us have learned that desire needs to be earned, that wanting things for no reason other than you want them, that can feel very indulgent. It can feel selfish, and it can feel really impractical. And so we became very good at something else instead. We became very good at justifying, at making the case, at framing our wants in terms of what they produce, who they serve, and whether they're reasonable. Can you see my air quotes? Reasonable. And if that desire can't pass that test, if it's just something that we love, something that lights us up, something that makes us feel more like ourselves, then we squish it before it even gets a fair hearing. So that's what I want to gently disrupt today. You might want to think about that as poking the Pillsbury Doughboy, like right in the stomach. Boop! Something needs to happen. Some curious poking is called for. If episode 436 was about the case for permission, here are 8 areas. Here's the ceremony. Here's why it matters, yada, yada, yada. Today's episode is about the practice of it, what it actually looks like in the everyday moments of your life. So here's what I've noticed about all this. The permission that we need most, it's not usually for the big stuff. It's for the small things. For example, reading a book. Can you read a book these days without multitasking? It is one of the reasons that I like Audible, because I can still multitask. Now, I've asked you this before, but it's such a good example that so many of us can relate to. Can you do this anymore? Can you just read and just sit there completely focused on the book, not also doing 10 other things like folding laundry or listening to something else at the same time, which I know we do? Just reading, just being. Here's another one. Having an empty day on your calendar, like a Saturday, for example, with no concrete plans. You're aware that you aren't being productive. You get it. You're not catching up with anything or checking off a bunch of things on your list. It's just a day that belongs to you in whatever way feels good. And what about the dinner you didn't make properly, like balanced with all the food groups, Or maybe you didn't make it at all because you didn't feel like it, and that felt like enough of a reason. And what about just going slower, getting less done, resting on purpose? This is different from when you are so tired that you just fall asleep as soon as you sit down to watch TV, or you might fall asleep at your desk. I've done that. Or collapse from exhaustion. But because you chose to rest before you got to that point. Now, none of these seem like a really big deal, right? None of them require a big decision or a life overhaul. But every single one of them is a moment where you either give yourself permission to want what you want, or you talk yourself out of it in the name of being reasonable. There's those air quotes again. Reasonable. What do you think is happening when you talk yourself out of small things like this? Well, we're practicing self-abandonment. Have you heard that term before? Self-abandonment. Here's the definition I got online. It's essentially when you reject, suppress, or ignore part of yourself in real time. In other words, you have a need or a desire that you want to meet, often on the spot, right? And you make the decision not to meet it. So, like these examples show, you might do this stuff repeatedly, but because these things are so small, these wants are so small, they barely register. And over time, all of those tiny moments, they just kind of all add up to a woman who has genuinely lost touch with what she wants. And when this happens, it doesn't mean you've stopped wanting things, but you have stopped doing something, and that's letting yourself notice. And that's the real cost. So I want to make this concrete because the version of this I'm hearing most often from the women I work with right now keeps ringing the same note, and it's about productivity. So when you notice yourself thinking, I'm not allowed to want this, or, ooh, this isn't for me, I can't do this, it isn't necessarily about big, expensive dreams or huge life changes. It's often about anything that doesn't produce a visible result. And this always reminds me of the hilarious I Love Lucy episode with Lucy and Ethel in the chocolate factory from 1952. It totally holds up. And that was classic machine-based productivity measured by how many wrappers you could get around a piece of chocolate as the conveyor belt goes by. Faster and faster, by the way, and hilarious. But now I'm noticing with the midlife gals in my coach community that productivity is referring to something else. It's things that are not visible in the same way, like rest, reading, going slower, doing less. So I hear things like, oh, I should be doing something. I just can't sit here. Or I feel guilty. I'm just not being productive. Or I read for an hour and then I felt like I wasted the afternoon. And what's underneath all of this is a belief that is often unexamined. Perhaps it's been kicking around for decades too. It's that your worth is tied to your output. That a day only counts if you can point to what you've accomplished. And this one hits really hard. That rest is something you earn, not something you choose. Ooh. So wanting to read a book without multitasking feels indulgent. Wanting a Saturday with no agenda, that can feel irresponsible. Wanting to order dinner or eat a peanut butter sandwich every once in a while, instead of cooking, that can feel lazy. And wanting to go slower, when everything around you is moving so fast, feels like falling behind. So if you ask someone who had these thoughts, they probably wouldn't share that they're not allowed to rest, right? But clearly the behavior tells a different story. So we're really not aware of what we're doing and what we're thinking. So think about yourself and how this plays out for you. What do you see? What do you think? I just think it's so interesting. I'd like to offer a bit of a reframe as you're thinking all of this. So even though it seems like this, these wants are not the opposite of productivity. I think there's something else going on, and I did hint at this in an earlier episode. I think they are the foundation of it. So I really believe they're self-care. It's self-care in the truest sense, not the occasional treat, but the ongoing practice of take caring yourself so that you have something left to give. You are allowed to want rest just because it feels good. You are allowed to want a slow Saturday just because slowing down, that can feel really nourishing. You're allowed to want the crystals just because they make you happy when you look at them. You really don't need more justification. It's just not required. So I want to go back a couple of years and quickly tell you something that happened when I was planning my 60th birthday. I had this idea. I wanted to go to Baja, Mexico, a place I'd been before, and I absolutely loved it. It's near the ocean. It's a gray whale hangout, and I wanted to go back, and I'd been thinking about it for 30 years. At first, I thought I would go alone, and when I was thinking it through, I just booked it by myself. It was like a group trip, and I just booked it. And then something really interesting happened. I mentioned it to my best friend because I was so excited. So just sharing the desire, not even really inviting her, I really didn't think she'd want to come. And she immediately said she wanted to come. I couldn't believe it. And then I mentioned it in a group I was on online as an update. And someone else said that she'd also love to do that. And she sent me a quick DM. And then I did send an email out. And I thought, let me just see if anybody else in my community is interested. And somebody responded, somebody that I'd never met personally. So 3 wonderful women, none of it was planned. All of it was a result of simply saying what I wanted out loud. I couldn't believe it. And I want you to notice something about this story. I didn't organize that trip. I didn't plan it as an event. I didn't send out a formal invitation. I just said what I wanted out loud without a whole bunch of justification. And the right people showed up. Permission to want. It isn't always a personal act. I know it feels like that. Sometimes it's the kind of thing that creates some momentum. It creates something new that you didn't anticipate. So the bottom line is that sometimes saying what you want out loud creates possibilities that you just couldn't have planned for. Now, you may also remember from episode 436 that I mentioned some weird thing that I have. It's a blue, fuzzy, sparkly wand, and it just materialized in my basement years ago. I have no clue where it came from, but boy, has it come in handy. When a client says something like, "Am I even allowed to want that?" I reach up, grab the ridiculous thing, and give a big ding on the Zoom screen. Permission granted. And the client always laughs because, of course, the wand is ridiculous. It's absurd. It looks like it belongs on a preschool princess costume, but something shifts. Anyway, even though it's silly, maybe it's because a fuzzy, sparkly wand can grant permission. And you know what? So can she. She always held the wand. She just forgot. Just like you. We all have a wand, but we just forget about it. Here's what I want to leave you with today. I've been thinking a lot about what I call age and stage awareness. It's the idea that where you are right now in your life requires a different relationship with time and with planning and with desire. It's different than where you were 20 or 30 years ago. You've spent decades being extraordinarily good at solving problems for other people. You diverted your intelligence, your energy, your creativity toward making things work for everyone around you. You are genuinely skilled at this. It's a superpower that you probably wouldn't even put on your resume. And I want to suggest something. What if you turned even a teeny bit, a fraction of that skill towards solving your own resistance to wanting what you want? Because here's what I know from being in these conversations every single week. The women who wait the longest to give themselves permission are also the women who are most likely to arrive at the end of this chapter with regrets. And as we've been talking about, it's not always the big things, but it is often about the small ones. So remember those examples we talked about earlier? It could be about not being comfortable reading a book or giving yourself weekend downtime, or even bringing more sparkly crystals into your life. The most common regret people have isn't about what they didn't accomplish. It's that they didn't allow themselves to be happier. They didn't let that be part of their life. And happiness in midlife isn't only about the big, expensive bucket list items. It lives in the small moments of giving yourself what you actually want, just because. Don't need to make a case for it or earn it first. And you certainly don't need to wait for somebody to hand you a permission slip or to bop you on the head with a blue fuzzy wand. So ask yourself this important question that you've no doubt heard before. If not now, when? If not now, when? What if you could get your head around the idea that as an older and wiser woman, you are at the age and stage where wanting something just because is not only allowed, but it's the whole point. All right, my friend, that's wanting something just because. This week, I want you to notice one moment where you catch yourself justifying a desire, making a case for it before anyone asked, and then ask yourself, what if I just wanted this? What if that was enough? Because it is. If today's episode stirred something and you want to talk through what you actually want without justifying it first, that's exactly what the next chapter direction session is for. It's a private 50-minute conversation where we take a real look at what's going on in your life, what you may not be seeing, and what needs to change so that you can move forward with more clarity and intention. Book yours at www.talktosuzy.com. And if you'd like to do some of this work on your own first, the Get Unstuck Midlife Clarity Fast and Easy Masterclass is waiting for you at www.midliferoadmap.com. In less than an hour, you'll walk away with a real plan. So thanks so much for being here today. It genuinely means a lot that you spend your time with me. For show notes and links, head to www.suzyrosenstein.com and look for episode 465. And don't forget to check out the Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs. It's my other show all about the reality of running a business as a midlife woman. It's everywhere you listen to podcasts. Being the queen of your brain domain is still the best way to be. I'll talk to you next week.